Since 2016, the most significant and complex public transport project has been under construction in the heart of Auckland CBD, the City Rail Link, or CRL for short. This 3.5 underground railway will be transformative for Auckland, like the Auckland Harbour Bridge was back in 1959. But what you might not know is that it was first planned a century ago, being scrapped and rerouted multiple times.
But what were the early proposals like? How did they change over time? And what benefits will the CRL bring? In this video, I'll take a look back at a century of events that has led up to the CRL opening in 2026.
Before I continue, if you enjoy urban planning content in Auckland, New Zealand, and you want to be notified for future videos, hit the subscribe button down below. In the late 1800s, rail was the main way to transport goods and people around, and so as a result, many countries, including ones in Europe and even America, had their transportation network centred around rail. This would also include New Zealand, as many towns and cities on both the North and South Island were served by an extensive national rail network in the 1920s. While this was happening, Auckland's rail network, which had been established 50 years earlier, was rapidly expanding, with most of Auckland's built-up area at the time being served by rail, complemented by Auckland's extensive train network. To improve connections between Auckland's eastern and western line, an underground rail connection through the heart of Auckland CBD would be proposed in 1926. But due to the Great Depression, the line would be cancelled, a sign of what was to come over the coming decades. After World War II, Auckland and other cities around it saw a seismic shift of transport policies, from public transport to cars. As a result, Auckland began to build motorways, which would connect to new areas built around the dependence of the car, or an extensive train network, which was at one point one of the most used transport networks in the world, would be shut down in 1956. At the same time, a comprehensive rail expansion, which included the underground rail link of the city once more, was put forward by Dulu Katia, alongside the construction of new motorways. But only the motorways part would proceed. It would be a similar situation in the 1960s, where a similar rail loop would be proposed and cancelled before coming off the ground. In 1972, the City Rail Link was proposed again, along with extending the rail network to the North Shore and East Auckland, both of which had seen significant urbanisation in the previous 20 years, although lacked rail infrastructure to connect them to the city. However, a change in government saw this rail scheme cancelled in 1976, which made it the fourth time an underground rail link of the city had failed to get off the planning stage. By the early 1990s, rail in Auckland faced an uncertain future, with patronage on public transport falling from a high of nearly 120 million in 1945 to just 33 million by 1994. And with rail networks closing in other New Zealand cities, it looked like the same would happen to Auckland. But thanks to the efforts of Raymond Siddles, Auckland's rail network did not follow the fate of other cities in New Zealand. And this low point would be the catalyst for a significant revival of Auckland's train network as traffic congestion was continuing to grow. In 2003, Waitemata Station, now called Waitemata Station, would open in Auckland's downtown, bringing rail back to Auckland CBD for the first time since 1930, and would be followed by other significant developments in Auckland's rail network, including the double tracking of the Western Line in the late 2000s, and the electrification of Auckland's network, which would be completed in 2015. These significant investments brought the idea of an underground rail link back into this conversation, and in 2016, a slightly modified 3.5km city rail link would finally begin construction, nearly 19 years after it was first proposed.
The neglect of rail in the second half of the 20th century, combined with extensive urban sprawl, has left much of Auckland very car dependent, with areas of the North Shore and East Auckland having no rail connection at all. This has resulted in chronic traffic congestion, which costs Auckland $2.6 billion annually. I've made a full video on why more roads don't fix traffic, so if you're interested, the link will be in the description.
Alongside the poor accessibility to the rail network for most Aucklanders, the rail network itself is currently set up as a commuter network to the CBD, as all lines outside of the shorter and less frequent Onehonga line currently terminate at Waitemata, thus resulting in less capacity of the network and no cross-town lines, thus needing to transfer for cross-town connections, with someone travelling from Henderson on the Western Line, Penrose on the Southern Line for example, needing to transfer at Newmarket. And speaking of the Western Line, it itself suffers from long travel times in comparison with driving. At the time of recording in 2025, it takes 55 minutes to travel between Swanston and Waitemata Waitemata, or driving in comparison averaging around 45 minutes in the morning peak, and 30 to 35 minutes off peak.
So with this in mind, we can now understand the factors behind the city rail link. It's a lack of cross-town routes, combined with the long travel times compared to driving, discourages many people from using public transport for anything other than to get to the city. But what does the CRL route look like, and what benefits will it bring?
The City Rail Link is a 3.5km line through Auckland CBD, starting underground at Waitemata Budamata, which is currently a terminus station as stated, before travelling underneath Albert Street, where the line passes through the heart of the CBD, with a station at Te Waipunamu, which then continues through the south of the CBD towards Kawangahape, the second of two new stations opening with the CRL, before continuing south and joining the western line at the redeveloped Mangaru station, formerly Mount Ida. This hasn't come cheap, with a steep price of 5.5 billion, which just so happens to be the most expensive public transport project built in New Zealand. But what benefits will the CRL generate to justify the sky-high price tag? Quite a lot actually. When it opens, the CRL will double the capacity of Auckland's rail network. As I talked about in the current issues of the rail network, the existing network is set up to move people between the suburbs and the city, with Waitemata serving as the terminus station, thus limiting the capacity of the network and limiting the number of trains that can run. With the CRL, however, the conversion of Waitemata into a through station allows more trains to run through the network, increasing the number of trains going through Waitemata from 20 trains per hour to 30, or 15 in each direction, with all lines increasing the number of trains running per hour. With the increased capacity and more direct route, there will also be double the number of people living within 30 minutes from Auckland CBD, with trips between Henderson and Te Waipunamu reducing by 17 minutes each way. As I talked about before, a trip from Swanson at the end of the western line to Waitemata currently takes just over an hour. Once the CRL is up and running, this will reduce to a 40 to 50 minute journey, with the current turnaround at Newmarket eliminated, along with the removal of level crossings following this opening, a topic I'll cover more in depth in a future video. The City Rail Link will also lead to a significant increase of train passengers, as trains, like other transport modes, are subject to induced demand. I've already talked about induced demand a few times on this channel, but for those unfamiliar with the concept, improving a transport mode, like making a train service more frequent or opening a new rail connection, makes the transport mode more appealing to use, resulting in more people using it. And above ground, the areas surrounding the CRL will undergo significant regeneration. The areas surrounding Mount Eden and Kawangahape stations estimated to have 200,000 square kilometres of residential and commercial development available, enabling people to live and work around these stations. I do have concerns with the pedestrian layout surrounding Kawangahape station, but I might discuss that in a future video. And that's not to forget the other significant social, economic and environmental benefits the CRL will bring, with the CRL expected to increase Auckland's GDP by 110 million over a decade, while 130 million will be generated from environmental and decongestion benefits, as the CRL provides an alternative and sustainable option to access the CBD, while reducing congestion on the roads at the same time.
The benefits of the CRL are significant and will transform Auckland as a whole, but there were opportunities to build a CRL earlier in the 1920s, 50s, 60s and 70s, so I thought it'd be interesting to compare all 5 proposals and discuss the pros and cons of each to see which proposal would have been the best. The earliest proposal of the CRL was in 1924, back when Auckland's train network was continuing to grow, complicated by the growing rail network. To make the city centre more accessible and to improve crosstown routes, a direct underground rail link was proposed through the city centre, with 3 new stations and above ground section at Arts Hill, but due to the Great Depression, this was scrapped. But what were the pros and cons of this first proposal?
Positives of the 1920 proposal include being at a time where a lot of Auckland's urban area was undeveloped, including the motorways not existing at this point, as well as most of the route not being underground, thus making it cheaper to build, with the directness of the route also likely making it the shortest. As for the negatives of the 1920 route, the line would have likely increased strain on the western line, while the directness of the route wouldn't have covered the northern and eastern parts of the CBD. Obviously this proposal did not go ahead, as it was cancelled due to the Great Depression, but it would have been interesting to see how the 1920 CRL would have altered future expansion.
The 1950s marked a seismic shift in Auckland's transport network, as trams were replaced by cars, but the year prior, the CRL was once again proposed for Auckland's city centre, this time with a few alterations, and would have linked to North Shore and East Auckland. But what are the pros and cons of this second proposal?
Similar to the 1920s route, being built just before rapid transformation of Auckland's transport system would have shaped future growth for Auckland, which might have left us with a more balanced transport system today. While the route itself had very good coverage of the city centre, unlike the 1920 proposal, which poorly served the northern part of the city centre. Negatives of the 1950 design include increased strain on west and eastern lines, similar to the 1920 proposal, as well as Queen Street and Civic Street shops being located very close together, thus resulting in large catchment overlap. Unfortunately, like the 1920 proposal, the proposal would not end up proceeding, as New Zealand would begin implementing a car-central transport network while public transport network began to decline.
The 1960s continued massive suburban expansion, with the Auckland Harbour Bridge opening in 1959 without a direct rapid transit route or walking connection. But in 1965, a decade after it was scrapped, the CR was brought back again, this time with a rail loop in the middle of the city. But what were the pros and cons of this proposal?
Positives of the 1960 proposal include the plan for future expansion of the North Shore and Dominion Road, both of which do not have some form of rail transport today, while the three stations are evenly spread out and provide very good coverage of the city centre. As for negatives, the inner downtown loop would have reduced the reliability of the network, as it is assumed the junction wouldn't be grade separated, which would result in the network being impacted if an issue was to occur. With a loop that has the longest length of tunnels out of all the proposals, which likely would have made it the most expensive one, adjusted for inflation.
In the early 1970s, Wabi's Rapid Rail, named after then Auckland City Mayor Sir Dove Robertson, was proposed to significantly expand Auckland's rail network and connect to the North Shore and East Auckland. This proposal also included another city rail loop, the fourth of its kind. Unlike previous proposals, Wabi's Rapid Rail did not cover direct connection to Auckland's Western Line, which would have come in the future expansion. Unfortunately, despite popular support, Wabi's Rapid Rail scheme would be cancelled in 1976 due to a change in government. But that's a fascinating topic, which I'll talk more about in a future video. But as for the city rail link itself, what were the pros and cons of Wabi's Rapid Rail?
Positives of the line include a close stop for university students, while similar to the 1960s, future expansion was planned for the North Shore. While the planned future expansion for the Western Line connection would have given options on how to route all the services due to its junction, similar to today's proposal. Negatives of this proposal include no immediate connection to the Western Line, which would have come in the future expansion under this proposal, thus giving certainty as to when Western commuters would benefit, while the amount of tunnelling required would have made it more expensive compared to other proposals, similar to the 1960s.
For the fifth and final of the proposals, we have the 2010s, the one that is currently being built. Unlike the 60s and 70s proposal, the 2010s route is a direct route for the city centre, with two new stations at Kawangahape and Te Waipounamu, an upgrade station at Mariden. But what are the pros and cons of this 2010s proposal?
Positives of the line include the fact that it's currently being built, unlike the previous proposal which was scrapped before they saw construction, while the route itself is very direct and provides good coverage of the city centre. The opening of Britomart in 2003 also helped build a case for the CRL, as there was previously no downtown stop prior to its opening. As for the negatives of the current proposal, the loss of a station between Kawangahape and Mount Eden in the south of the CBD was unfortunate. However, this was to ensure that the junction at Mount Eden would be grade separated, as well as the lack of integration of Auckland Stand Station, which today just carries some of the very few intercity rail services in New Zealand.
It's interesting to see how the CR has changed over 100 years, with political and economic factors causing this route to be delayed and redesigned. But in my opinion, today's route is the most suitable for today, as it's direct and has good coverage of the city centre. But with the power of hindsight, the 1950s proposal with a direct connection to the Western Line would have been the best in my opinion.
For over 100 years, an underground rail network in Auckland City Centre has been proposed and cancelled multiple times due to changes in government, financial factors, and prioritising other modes of transport. But the core concept has remained and has resulted in a route that is good balance between the other proposals. Despite its sky-high costs and lengthy construction time, the CR will significantly improve travel times and increase capacity for rail in Auckland, which will provide many positive social, economic, and environmental impacts that will benefit Auckland and New Zealand.
Overall, while to consider the CR has taken 100 years to complete, it is after all nearing completion, as this time next year, the CR should be up and running, and when it happens, Auckland as a city will be changed forever.
Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe. What do you think? Is the current CR route that's been built the one you would have taken? Or would you have preferred an older proposal that perhaps would have come with more rail accessibility around the city? Let me know in the comments. With the CR opening next year, there'll be more videos to come on the project and other developments happening in Auckland. So be sure to subscribe if you don't want to miss out on those. And as always, I'm Sam, aka Cube, and I'll see you in the next one.